Ready? 70% of gangbangers come from those households. 70% of high school dropouts. 70% of teen suicide. 17% of teen pregnancies. 70% of teen substance abuse. 90% of homeless and runaway children come from single-parent households. 85% of behavioral disorder. 80% of rapists. Guys, if you want to become wealthy and you want your kids to become wealthy, care about your family. Yo, what is going on, guys? Today we're going to be talking about the difference between the poor and the rich and how the poor can get themselves into a great financial situation. I'm not going to be talking about normal poor versus rich things that are usually talked about in poor versus rich videos. I'm going to go incredibly in depth, and I'm going to be incredibly politically incorrect in this video. So guys, with that being said, I'm going to start off simple. I'm going to go through the list of 5 things that you need to do to become rich in the United States of America, guaranteed by statistics. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is wasting your money on bogus products, on bogus services, on alcohol, tobacco. We're going to get into the data on that. The second thing we're going to talk about is how debt is actually good if used properly and how people are lied about debt. Then we're going to go into how to improve your credit score so that when you do want to borrow for certain situations, you're going to be able to borrow at a lower interest rate and pay less to your expenses. Fourth, we're going to talk about challenging yourself at your job, in your environment. And then guys, this is going to be the very, very sad, very emotional part of this video and very reprehensible part of this video that's very politically incorrect. Number 5, we're going to talk about family. And you guys better believe that, I know this is going to sound shocking, but of all the things I've listed so far, family is the most important thing to become wealthy in the entire world, especially the United States of America. You guys are going to be shocked. I'm going to get very politically incorrect, so definitely wait for that part of the video. That being said, let's start out with the part 1. We're going to be talking about the biggest waste of money there are. I'm going to pop up some statistics in front of you guys, but apparently, due to my research, $413 a month, or excuse me, a year from poor households is spent on lottery tickets. That is 9% of a poor person's income, and some sources actually have it higher at 14-15% of a poor person's income. And by poor people, I mean people making less than 30 grand. Imagine, guys, flushing 9% of your money down the toilet every single year. Now, if you did the opposite, if you took that money and invested it into the S&P 500 from the time you're 22 to the time you're about to retire, you would have gained $150,000 in terms of capital gains, and you would retire with $150,000. Okay, the average baby boomer has $0 in retirement savings. If you just did that one thing, stop buying lottery tickets, and instead you invested that money, guess what? You would have more money than more than 50% of baby boomers. Second thing I want to talk about is vacations. A study came out, about 75-ish% of folks actually had to borrow money to go on vacation. The percentage of income people are spending on vacation is about 10% on average, and actually some people on a yearly basis, a quarter of people spend more than 15% of their income to go on vacation. Guys, this is ridiculous. Let me show you my house right now, okay? You want a vacation? This is my house right here. Go into the woods. Okay, I'm being serious. Go into the woods, have some fun, do what you gotta do, but don't be wasting your money when you can't afford to live and then going and asking the government for a welfare check. Okay, I told you this video is gonna be politically incorrect. We're gonna get the facts. That's a fact that spending more than 15% of your income, and I'm assuming that's gross too, so after taxes, probably 20%, okay? Spending 15% of your gross income is a horrible idea, guys, if you want to become wealthy and if you want to depend on yourself for your financial success and financial freedoms. The next thing I want to talk about, guys, in terms of bad vices being alcohol, tobacco, gambling. Guys, the poorest people pay the most as a percentage of their income on these products. Stop it. If you want to become financially wealthy, financially rich, cut down the alcohol, cut down the tobacco, cut down the gambling. Let me tell you a stock I own. I own 2 stocks. I own Anheuser, Busch, and I own Altria. Altria sells cigarettes. This is why. Because the poor love it so much that they don't care if it makes them poorer. What I realized too was once the Rona hit, more cigarettes were sold. A huge increase in the volume of cigarettes were starting to be sold, and I made a lot of money. Don't do that because you're profiting me, and I don't want to profit off of that stock anymore. I want to see people stop spending money on these things that waste their income. Now let's move on, guys, to part number 2, and that's going to be how debt is not necessarily bad. Guys, so a lot of people learn about debt when they're young, and they hear about credit card debt, they hear about this kind of debt, that kind of debt. Debt doesn't have to be a bad thing. Let me give you some numbers, and then you'll understand why. So let's say, for example, you have $100 and you borrow $1,500 at an interest rate of 6%. Then you know that for a fact you can get a return of 15% on all of that money. Well, because your borrowed money is actually making a 9% net gain, because once you take the 15% and subtract the 6% interest rate, that's 9%. Because you're making a 9% gain, at the end of a year, you'll make 150% on your total return. Whereas if you only use your money, which was the $100, and you got a 15% return, you would only make $15. Do you see what I'm saying here? The point is, borrowing money and leveraging yourself can make you huge loads of money. Keep in mind, guys, if you actually lose money, you'll lose a lot more than if you just use your own money and you didn't leverage it. So that's just a disclaimer I forgot to mention, but let's move on with the video. But you have to know how to do this. So do your own research and make sure you research enough to actually understand how to do this. But the best way to do this is in mortgages. If you can afford a good mortgage, get a nice low interest rate mortgage and a home that you can afford, you can actually get a mortgage, pay 20% down, and then invest the capital, the rest of your capital that you could have spent on the house, into the stock market and get a huge booming return on your money. That's why going into debt is good if you know how to do it properly. Now, going into consumer debt, meaning debt to buy a motorcycle, or debt to buy something that you don't need, or debt to buy, I don't know, let's say an Xbox. That is not good debt. That is bad debt. The other kind of good debt I want to talk about, guys, is credit cards. If you use them properly. Let me give you a great example. One is Discover It cashback card. Now, the reason I have a Discover It cashback credit card is because the first year I get 5% off on certain kinds of restaurants, or certain kinds of retail, or certain kinds of whatever. So for example, this quarter, for the past 3 months, I've been able to make 5% return, or 5% cash back, when I go to restaurants to eat. Now, the first year they double your cash back, which means I get 10% off when I go to restaurants. Now, I don't go to restaurants any more often than I did before I got the credit card, okay? But now when I do go, I get 10% off. This is major because, guys, it reduced my cost of living in one area of my life by 10%. Now, the key to this, guys, is to make sure that, one, you can afford the debt you take on when you take on debt, right? So when you go to a restaurant with your Discover It cashback card, you don't pay for dinners you can't afford. You don't just go to dinner because you want to. You go to a dinner that you would have normally gone to in the first place, except now you go with a credit card to get the cash back. I hope that makes sense. So the point is, when you learn how to use debt to save money, don't spend so much more that it actually offsets the reward that you get from your credit card. Number 3, that's how you do a number 3. That's how you do a number 3, baby. Number 3, guys, credit score. There's a couple things you really want to make sure you do. The first thing is to make sure you pay off your credit card debt every single month on time, because this is one of the number 1 things affecting your credit score. The number 2 thing is to use your credit card like a debit card. When you use a credit card, you're borrowing money to pay for something, but you want to borrow against money that you already have. Let's say I have $50,000 in my bank account and I need to buy something for $1,000. Firstly, you should be buying it only if you can afford it, and only if you would have bought it anyway without a credit card. But let's say you buy that $1,000 product with a credit card, voila, you have $50,000 in the bank to pay it off immediately. You don't pay interest on your credit cards for things that aren't necessary. Now, the next thing you want to do, guys, is to make sure that you acquire as many credit cards as humanly possible a year before you want to make an actual loan, or get an actual loan. Why? This makes no sense. Well, let me tell you. According to the credit bureaus, they want to see you have about 11 to 12 credit cards in your name to have a perfect credit score in this certain category. Now, the reason for this is because the more credit cards you have that you handle responsibly, the credit bureaus know you can be trusted, and it increases your credit score. When you increase your credit score, you're able to get better loans, better mortgage rates, and you're able to leverage yourself to make a crap ton of money. So make sure you acquire as many cards as possible, but make sure the cards don't have annual fees, or if they do have annual fees, make sure the benefits of the credit card outweigh the fees. If this doesn't make too much sense because you're new to credit cards, do not worry. Just know that you can use credit cards to your benefit, and Google some YouTube videos from like Graham Stephan. If you have a cashback credit card, guys, invest your rewards in the stock market. So let's say in a usual setting, you would take your debit card, go somewhere and pay for something. Well, now when you use a credit card, let's say you use your Discover cashback credit card and you get 5% off of a restaurant. You take that 5% off, let's say it's $5 for a $100 meal. You take that 5%, take that $5, put in an account and invest that money. You invest that money that you would have otherwise spent, and that's going to be your savings for your retirement. Okay, now guys, challenge yourself at work. Number 4, challenge yourself at work. Ask for extra responsibility after you do whatever your task was to do at your job. I know, for example, I used to work at a daycare when I was 16. And I made $11 an hour in Massachusetts, which at the time was the minimum wage. I remember what I did was I read a book by Brian Tracy. I forgot what it's called, but I'll pop it up on your screen. And in that book, he said, ask for more responsibility when you're done. So I said, okay, cool. I'm going to do that when I go to work and try this out for myself. What I did was at the daycare, I cleaned the bathroom every single hour. And you were supposed to anyway, but I made sure I was the one who did it, not somebody else, so that people see that I'm the one doing it. I made sure I learned the logistics of the company. So I realized, okay, at the daycare, we got to get the towels ready. We got to get this chemical ready. We got to fill this up at the operations center. We have to do this, that, and the other. And so I did those things. After a couple months, the manager literally texted me and said, wow, I've heard you've been doing a really good job. The supervisors love you. You get everything done on time. Before you leave for your shift, everything's set up for the next shift to come in. Guess what? I walked into the office of the manager a week later and I asked for a $3 raise to $14 an hour. She said yes. Why? Because when you're productive and you're very productive, they don't mind paying you extra to keep you satisfied because they know I can leave. So guys, keep that in mind. It's very important to do that. Now, the next thing, guys, is to make sure you get a mentor. I got a mentor at the same place. It's actually a big corporation, so the daycare is just a part of the gym that I worked at, the 5-star gym. But essentially, guys, I went to the general manager and I asked him, hey, can you be my mentor? We were one of the fastest growing gyms in the entire country, and we were the fastest, one of the fastest, top 3 fastest, I believe, in the actual company in terms of that branch. Now, when I asked him, I said, hey, can you mentor me? Can you do this, that, and the other? I'll pay you. I'll buy you some coffee. I'll take you out for sushi, and then hopefully you can teach me your ways. Well, I learned his ways, and I used his ways to do the next thing, move up the ladder in jobs, guys. The next thing I did was I went to a waiter. A waiter, you get tips. It's all about customer service, right? And so when I learned the tips he gave me, the advice he gave me on how to run a business, I made sure I applied that to a small restaurant. From there, I became a manager. And when I became a manager, guys, you know how good that looks on my resume? I was 17 and 18 years old when I was a manager. And now that's able to propel me into jobs with leadership roles because folks see that I was a manager and a waiter at a restaurant and they go, wow, good job. All right, guys, I want to go on a quick tangent and a little bit of a brag just to show you guys what I'm trying to say. When I was, right now, currently, I'm working at an investment bank, one of the biggest investment banks in the world in Boston. And this investment bank, I'm on their technology team. Now, you might say, well, BK, good for you. What's your point? My point is this, guys. Guess how many technology courses I've taken in my life? 0. Guess how many finance courses I've taken in my life? 0. Guess how many economics courses I've taken in my life? 2. The point is, guys, I actually don't know that much in terms of technology, in terms of investment banking, in terms of financial services. But how did I get that job? I got that job because I had previous experience on my resume, and because number 2, I read a lot of books. So this is going to be my next tip for this part, for the part number 4. Read. Guys, whatever you know, whatever you're interested in, read about it, learn about it. That's how you're going to get that money. Because guess what? When they called me up and they were interviewing me and asking me questions, they asked me, hey, what's this? I knew the answers like that, even though I didn't take a single course, because I read about it. That's how I got that job, to do something that I was never actually trained for. Okay, now the next thing, guys, I want to talk about family. Part number 5. All right, I'm going to give you some statistics. All of these statistics have to do with the results of single parent households or single mother households. Ready? 70% of gangbangers come from those households. 70% of high school dropouts. 70% of teen suicide. 17% of teen pregnancies. 70% of teen substance abuse. 50% of incarcerated youth from one parent households. 90% of homeless and runaway children come from single parent households. 85% of behavioral disorder. 80% of rapists. Guys, if you want to become wealthy and you want your kids to become wealthy, care about your family. This is going to become a really weird conversation right about now. Okay, guys, when you have sex, wear a fucking condom. I'm not kidding. This is how you become rich. Guess what? You have a baby out of wedlock, you're guaranteed almost to be in poverty. Let me give you the statistics on this. According to the Brookings Institute, if you graduate high school, get a full-time job, get married, and have kids in that exact order, your chances of being in poverty are 2%. That's it. 2%. Guess what? If you break that pattern, your chances of being in poverty are 50%. guess what? The majority of the poor are actually poor because they didn't have a two-parent household when they were growing up. That is a fact. Let me give you another statistic that's going to baffle your mind. Black families have a poverty rate of 22% in the United States versus whites who have a poverty rate of about 8%, I believe. Now, you might say, obviously, this is racism. Guess what? Some of it might be. Some of it might be. I'll give you 5%. Guess what, though? If we adjust for blacks with two-parent households and blacks with single-parent households, we'll actually see that the black poverty rate of a two-parent household is the same as the white poverty rate. Did you know that? It's below 10%, it's below the national average. Now, black families are 75% born out of wedlock. That means 75% of them are putting their odds against themselves, okay? When you put the odds against yourself, guess who's going to be poor? You, your children, your family. Why? Because let's say you're a single parent and you're in a house, right? And you're supporting a couple kids. The cost of your kids are the same. The cost of your house is the same, even if you don't have a husband, even if you don't have a boyfriend. So here's my point. Women, find a man that's actually going to be respectful, that's going to be loyal, that's going to stay around after they impregnate you and make sure that you're responsible. Guys, don't be assholes who leave your women, right? I think the number one thing right now is this lack of responsibility for men to stay with the woman that they impregnate. This is ridiculous because you're ruining your kid's life, you're ruining your family's life, statistically speaking. That's my opinion. You might not share the opinion, but the point is the facts are, if you leave your kids, you're a horrible human being who's almost guaranteeing your son or daughter's failures. Now, the other thing I want to say, guys, is I just talked about black families, but guess what? White families, same thing. We see a rise. Now, less as a percentage, less white families have this problem, but it's increasing. Asians is increasing. Hispanics is increasing. We need to stop increasing this trend because this trend is going to be detrimental to both violence, crime, and also it's going to be detrimental to the ability for our children to grow up with appropriate wages, guys. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please remember to smash the thumbs up button down below, hit the subscribe button, and remember to slash the notification bell right next to it for a ring-a-ding-ding. I hope you guys have a great day. Please stay safe while the Roni Rona's out there, and bye-bye.